Culture. Good evening and welcome to this particular session. We will be examining how the culture of learning has impact on the organization and how the organization can build such culture so that they can develop a culture of learning that affects everybody within the organization. This particular webinar is a special webinar from Let's Read, and it lays the foundation of what the organization is trying to promote to ensure that individuals and corporate institutions are able to continuously keep a culture of learning in place within the organization. As Jim Rohn said, that reading is essential to those who wish to rise above the ordinary. So if your organization wishes to be one of the top leading institutions, and as an employee or an individual, you want to be the best person in the kind of job you do, you must be given to a lot of learning and a lot of reading for you to be able to achieve this kind of success. To begin with, I'd like to ask you a question. How do we create a learning culture that means that our staff are not just ticking the boxes that they've attended training or that they've attended a webinar, but to ensure that they comply with the regulations and they are able to do the things they are supposed to do? How do we ensure this happens? Interestingly, a lot of organizations are struggling with this and are still not able to achieve a culture of learning where at the end of classes, at the end of training, employees go back to their office and they are able to apply the things that they have learned at that point in time. But when we say learning culture, what exactly do we mean by a learning culture? Well, a learning culture means providing staff with opportunities to try something new. It means that staff has the opportunity to do things they've never done before. And in so doing, they develop a new mindset, a new knowledge, a new skill at that point in time. Now, where staff are interested in asking how and why is another reason why we have a learning culture. If you're in an environment where staff ask questions, they seek the reasons why things are the way they are. Not the kind of staff that just comes to the office and then sits down on his desk and is waiting for what his manager will tell him to do. In that case, you know that you have a learning culture in that particular environment. Again, where staffs are making connections with other staff, you make connection with another person because you understand the person. You know the person very well. You understand the person's background. You respect the person's background. That only happens because you've learned about that individual at that point in time. If in your environment, team members are not showing understanding of themselves, they are not showing appreciation of the other individual, then we have a learning culture problem in that particular environment. Another reason to say that we have a learning environment, a learning culture, is where we give our staff time to notice things and ask questions. So when projects, assignments are given to staff, you give them some space. You allow them to go through it themselves. And then as they notice areas where they're struggling with gaps, they then work on those particular areas to improve upon it as much as possible. That's an example of how we ensure that we have a learning culture in that particular space and in that particular environment. Another reason how we demonstrate the learning culture is that our community are able to see our staff engaging in self-learning. All right, you can see the entire people. Whenever you come to that environment, you notice that the people in that environment are learning. They are demonstrating that they are learning a lot and they are building themselves at that point in time. And then there's also support. They support continual review and reflection of what they are learning at that point in time in the organization. This is what we mean by a learning culture. So an organization that has these things in place can be said to be a learning organization, an organization that is learning and given to learning at that point in time. Now, what is learning? When we say an organization is a learning organization, what do we mean by a learning organization? Well, an organization is able to adapt and compete at low cost. And that's an example of learning happening in that place. Common definitions of learning include a multi-level concept where individuals where individuals are able to get to learn as much as they can within the organization. There is role of learning cultures also. The beliefs in the organization is such that they allow them to continue to learn. The norms in the organization is such that learning is accepted. The values of the organization are supportive of employees learning. And so we drive learning as if it's part of our culture, it's the way we do things. And then the human resource practices and policies also are supportive of a learning culture. If these three are in place, then you can say that that organization is a learning organization, and that organization is learning well according to what you find in that particular space and that particular organization at that point in time. Now we can take this conversation to another level when we begin to consider exactly how learning organizations and innovation are modeled. Now you notice that globally, if you look at a country that has a high proportion of learning, a high proportion of education and training in that particular country, tendency is that there's a higher in-house creative capacity within the people in that particular country. Organizations that also have that kind of learning and structure in place, there's a higher capacity of learning in that particular organization. Countries where they are lean and tailorist in nature, okay, they have forms of work and organization dominates, and they have more non-innovators and technology adopters in that environment. Tendency is that there is more reliance on outside supply of new knowledge, new technology, new training, new advancement at that point in time. And it does not encourage learning at all in that kind of environment. Instead, what happens, you notice that in those environments, they borrow things, they buy things. Why? Because internally, they have not built the capacity to learn. They've not built the capacity to do things themselves the way they're supposed to do, the kind of result they will have achieved as much as possible. And these are exactly some of the concerns we see when it comes to learning within the environment. Now, in our agenda, what are we going to cover today? On this particular program, we're going to be looking at training and development and how it creates a culture of empowerment. We also look at the corporate university structure, how the corporate university is able to address and deliver results in this particular area. And then we'll look at how you design training and learning methodology in such a way that it creates learning in the organization. Then we'll then encourage you with next steps, some of the things you can do to be able to make advancement. So to start off with this conversation on this area, we shall then look at how training and learning happens and how a learning culture can be put in place within the organization. Let's look at how that works and see how this can be done in the organization as much as possible. All right. Okay. So how do we ensure that learning works exactly the way we expect it to work in the organization? Let's look at the first one. In the first case, we expect learning to demonstrate as much as possible the various perspectives that we expect to deliver results. Like I said earlier at the beginning, my name is Joel Umike, and I am the CEO of P4P Institute. I am a trusted advisor to institutions, and I help organizations to grow, to develop themselves, and they are able to achieve the kind of results they want in the things they do in various perspectives. I am given to learning. In fact, I'm an avid reader. I believe that if you don't learn, you will not advance as much as possible in life. So let's take our conversation to the next level. So let's look at it. How do you examine training and development in such a way that it creates an empowered learning culture, in such a way that it ensures that the culture of the organization drives learning to ensure that results happen exactly the way we want them to happen within that organization? Let's take a few questions and see how that helps us out. Question: why does training fail? Have you noticed that some training fail? Let me explain to you some of the reasons why training fail. One, employees are not interested in that particular training. So no matter how much training you give to them, it will not enter, it will have no result. 2, training is not what will have solved the problem that the employee has. The employee might have had motivational issues, or there may be system problem in the institution, and so training will not work at that point in time. 3, it is possible that the facilitator is not a very good person in terms of transferring knowledge. So what is being transferred and the content is not sufficient to meet the employee's needs, so training may fail. 4, when the employee comes back to the work environment, it is possible that the structure of the environment does not support the employee to change his behavior, to transfer what he has learned in class, and so training may fail at that point in time. These are just a few of the reasons why training may fail. And when training fails, we have lost the value and the expectations at that point in time. And the employees will feel that it was a waste of their time. Institutions will feel that it was a waste of their investment in that particular training that has happened. I'd like to ask you another question. What is empowerment? When we say empowerment, what do we mean by empowerment? And you've heard empowerment in different ways. You hear youth empowerment, women empowerment, you hear all kinds of empowerment, employee empowerment. What does empowerment mean? In the context of our conversation today, what does empowering employees to learn, what does it mean? And how does it drive learning in the organization? Well, empowerment has different needs and different approaches. There is no one size that fits all when it comes to empowerment. However, thinking win-win is an example of empowerment, where both the employee and the employer win. They succeed at the same time at that point in time. Then you say that they have been empowered at that point in time. Setting goals also. When you set goals for an individual and the person owns the goal, takes the goal, and runs with that goal, that person has been empowered because he has clarity about where he's going and what he needs to achieve at that point in time. The results are what he desires, and he needs to achieve it at that point also. Also providing specific guidelines, step 1, step 2, step 3. Giving an employee an operating procedure is also a way to ensure that the person is empowered to deliver results. If you're a line manager, do your employees have job descriptions? Do they have work procedures, work schedules of how to do their things? Are there policy documents, process manuals that ensure the employees get their jobs very well? Specifying guidelines help them to stay within the boundaries of what is expected, and that empowers them to act within those particular boundaries at that point in time. Then also clarifying and providing the resource the employee needs to do his job well is also another type of empowerment. Because when an employee does not have access to the resource he needs to work, he feels frustrated. I am supposed to do a job, but I don't have the tools. I don't have the resources to do it. So I end up being frustrated and I'm not able to deliver the results I expect to deliver at that point in time. Then also determining who should be accountable, you or the employee, and to what extent the person is supposed to be accountable. A sense of accountability drives empowerment. Finally, consequence management. When you drive through consequence management, people know that when they fail in this particular area, they will be called to order. They will be called to attention for the areas that they have failed at that point in time. And these are very, very important to ensure that we're able to get the results that we expect at that point in time. Now, what is the empowerment learning model? What is the empowerment learning model? Well, the empowerment learning model is very straightforward. It says learning and performance improvement lies with individuals. Seriously, let me say that again. An employee's learning, an employee's performance lies with that particular employee. There's a Chinese proverb that says, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. Even if the teacher is in class and tries to teach this employee, if he's not willing and ready to learn, he will not learn anything. There's another proverb that says that you can drag a camel or a horse to the stream, but what? You cannot force it to drink water. So no one can force anybody to learn. We can only cultivate an environment where employees exercise their unique abilities, their capabilities to learn, and then they can grow and change, and then they become empowered to be able to do what is right at that point in time. So a learning model requires a befitting environment of learning. What are you doing as an organization to ensure that learning happens in that environment? Do you encourage failure? When people fail, do you help them to learn from that particular failure? Or are employees destroyed, beaten, dealt with whenever they fail? If not so, they will run away from taking initiative at that point in time in the environment also. Do you encourage sharing of information? When an employee learns something and he comes in and shares it, do other people hush him down, say, we know it already, or this is not important, this is not what we're doing here? When you do that, you discourage that person from seeking future knowledge in various areas. So learning is key. You must create knowledge for that particular person. We live in a time when there's a lot of change that is happening, where visionary leaders and businesses who want to achieve results, they propel their organization, and they do that by learning. It was Tony Olumelu who said that the day he stops learning, his entire franchise will die. That's an example of a leader who understands why the success that he has is a function of his abilities and what he has learned. Marius Moore also says, when he was speaking to the directors in his board meeting, he told members of the board at the beginning of the board meeting, he said to them that once I know what you know, all of you are fired. What that means is that as a board member, you must continue to learn and bring something new to the table. If not so, the chairman will fire you from being a board member. You see, your contribution in any environment, in any organization, is the learning and knowledge you have. Once they have finished learning what you know, then you're no longer useful to that organization at that point in time. All right. So to do so will require new thinking, new ways to develop yourself and build yourself. So ask yourself, in the past 1 week, in the past 1 month, what have you learned? What have you developed yourself in? As a HR manager, what have you helped your employees to grow in for them to do better than they are doing? Are you running training programs? Are you running learning interventions and things like that to help employees to grow? As a manager, when was the last time you engaged your team members to find out where their gaps are? And what help have you rendered to them to grow them? You see, this thing called learning, creating a culture of learning, must be holistic, it must be visionary, and it is a competitive advantage for your organization to produce the success that it needs at that point in time. I'd like to share an experience for you from First United Bank and Trust. Their strategic objective, they say in their strategy, and their strategy is very, very instructive. I like their strategy, the way they coined it. They say that we want to be the employer of choice for a customer-oriented, cross-trained, multifunctional staff. For them to achieve this strategy, they must train their employees, not only in the employee specialist area, but cross-trained in various areas. For them to achieve this, they must redeploy their employees from one function to another function regularly. And for each of that redeployment comes training and development. That's why they have well-rounded employees who are managers that are very solid, very grounded. It's okay to be a specialist. However, remember what a professor is. A professor is someone who knows everything about one small thing and little of the rest of the world. In the business environment, we're not looking for professors. If you want to be a professor at work, go to the university. That's where professors are. In the work environment, we want people who can contribute their part in various areas and support others in their own contribution along the line. First United also says that they create an environment that supports employee enablement. Those are strong words. Those are powerful words. They show how strategy can drive the culture of learning in the organization. Now let's look at cultural impact of strategy. You need to develop knowledge power. Employees that desire or are empowered to learn and expand the bank's human capital capacity. That's what it means for them. Employee knowledge base is foundational to high satisfaction in their jobs. And then creation of a culture of learning through empowering learning model helps them to drive high return on investment in the organization. These are examples of how First United Bank drives learning in the organization. Now, how do they do this? There are 3 things they focus on in order to drive this particular paradigm. First, they say they have a culture of alignment. It aligns what people see They align what people do. They align the results that people get. C, they ensure that there is a paradigm shift, that every employee must see things differently. You cannot be myopic. You cannot be insistent on the way you used to do things and remain in that particular area only, because it does not help you to continue to deliver the results you want. 2, it helps people to change behaviors. They drive behavioral change. And so it is not enough to say somebody has attended a training or a learning intervention. The question is, what has the person been able to do with his learning in order to be able to drive his success at that point in time? 3, is he able to get the results he expects to get at that point in time? So you must achieve results in order to get, and once you achieve results, the cycle continues again, and they continue to align, change in paradigm. Empowerment and leadership. They hire the leadership and they hire the empowerment, the more the results the organization can get. At the bottom here, we have organizational benefits. The lower the empowerment, the lower the results that the organization can get at that point in time. So it only drives for more and more within that environment. In the first place, where leadership is low, empowerment is low, organizational benefits are low, what do you have? You encourage employees to play a more active role in their work. You see, in this case, it is not a driver, it's by encouragement. You call the person involve employees in taking responsibility for their actions, for improving the way that things are done within their environment. And once you do that, employees have a sense of ownership. It's no longer that they have heard from you, you have inspired them, but you get them involved in the work, and so they own the output of that work at that point in time. All right? Then the third level of engagement, of employee engagement, is enablement. And at this particular level, you enable employees to make more and bigger decisions without having to refer to someone else in order to senior for them to achieve the results that they are achieving. So how do you achieve this thing? Get closer to the customer, improve service delivery, innovate continuously, increase productivity, and gain the competitive edge that you need to have to deliver the results that you expect in the organization. This is how to drive this. And this is taken from the works of Jane Smith some time ago on her works that is called Empowering People. Now, from this particular perspective, it shows that learning culture requires leadership change. It requires a change in the paradigm of leaders. 100% of employee participation is required for you to achieve the learning culture. You're either a learner or you're a teacher. Every employee in the organization must either be a learner or he's a teacher. You're either teaching people what they should know or you're helping them to acquire the knowledge at that point in time. All right? 2, employees do not have the necessary skills to be successful, but they need continuous learning and training. And so that is why we need paradigm shift of executives and leaders. 3, managers are responsible for coaching, for reinforcing training, and for incentivizing employees to be able to do more so that they can achieve better results than they are currently achieving in the work that they are doing in their organization. Number 4, employees are responsible. Please take notes. Employees are responsible and accountable for assessing their own knowledge, their own skills, and their own abilities. And thus, they are required to initiate their own personal development plans and take positive action to achieve those development plans. So sometimes you hear employees say that my organization, they don't train. In my organization, they are not training. I've been in this organization for 2 years, for 3 years. I've not gone on any training, no development. you are doing yourself a disservice. For you to advance in this current life that we have, you must learn. You must learn. You must invest in yourself. For every amount of money you receive as salary, ask yourself, your salary in the past 6 months, in the past 3 months, what have you done with it? What percentage of your salary have you put in yourself, in your personal development as the case is? The more you invest in yourself, the more you learn and the more you progress. In fact, it is said that the best employee who rises very fast usually invests 10% minimum of his salary on his personal development. So if you're earning 100,000 naira every month, then every month you must set aside 10,000 naira for your personal development and personal training. Finally, number 5, employees who are continually trained and apply learnings perform at a highest level. They have high job satisfaction and they have high retention and they always progress. They are promoted regularly. If you have not been promoted recently in the past few months and years, ask yourself, in the past period, what have you learned that merits for you to be promoted? That thing you have learned, what have you brought to the table to show your organization that you're qualified to be promoted? This is why sometimes younger ones who join an organization can come in and progress faster than older ones that has been in that particular organization. Why? Because those ones are given to learn. They are excited. They are full of energy. They want to learn and do great things. While some employees who sit down in the office and claim that they have been here, they are loyal, that out of their loyalty, they should be progressed along the line. This is sad because in today's world, there's nothing like loyalty again. Employees come, employees go. The thing is that while you are present in that organization, the organization will reward you the extent to which you produce results. If you begin to underperform at that point in time, they will call you to order. If you begin to overperform and produce superior results, they will promote you and recognize you for the superior results you're doing at that point in time. So for this change in leadership paradigm, this change in culture in terms of employees learning, how can you implement it? Well, here is a practical plan. Here is a plan of how you can implement a learning culture. 1, you must hire learners. When you're recruiting staff, next time when you're hiring staff into your organization, make sure you find out whether the person you're about to hire is a learner or somebody who is full and is unwilling to learn anymore. His mind is closed. He doesn't want to learn again. And because his mind is closed, he's not unwilling to learn at that point in time. What does it mean to hire learners? You need to change your interview process, change your selection process. Instead of checking for who has qualification, who has the pedigree and the background, also check for someone who has the willing mentality, the learning mentality, who is willing to learn, willing to grow at that point in time. Not somebody or during the interview, you ask a question, you say, I know it, I've done it, I am used to it already. When you meet such kind of employees, there's an air of arrogance around them. It means that learning may not be 100% for those individuals. But if you find someone during the interview and you're asking him about this particular question, I say, well, and he tells you, well, I don't know how it works in your organization, and I would like to learn how your organization does it. Where I am coming from, this is the way we have done it. That's an example of a willing spirit to learn. The person recognizes humbly that perhaps the environment he's about to come to is not the same thing as where he's coming from. And he's willing to apply what he has learned and learn further along that particular line. 2, high learners is equal to high performance. So if you hire people who are high learners, you have higher performance in the organization. Now, high performers require empowerment so that they can self-assess themselves, they can correct themselves, they have a thirst for knowledge, they are driven for results so that they can develop that kind of learning they have in their need. You need millennials. Millennials are youths who are between the ages of 30 and below. These are millennials, and these individuals are given for learning. They learn very quickly, very fast. They are impatient. They are very curious. They ask a lot of questions. And if you are not careful, you will misconstrue their question for arrogance or stubbornness, but it's not. They are simply asking in order to understand the world of work, why things are that particular way. And the more you explain, the better that person is ready to impact your organization at that point in time. The second tactics you can implement in your organization in order to create a learning culture is to take a second look at your training and development department and unit. You need to create a culture of a company-owned training and development structure. You need to create a corporate university structure in your organization. A corporate university is the development and administration of an empowered learning system, just like you find in the university environment. I'm going to spend some time illustrating this so you can see very clearly how you can put a corporate university structure in your own environment so you can achieve the kind of results you expect to achieve at that point in time. So, what exactly is a corporate university structure? And how can you put this in place in your organization to achieve results? Some organizations call it corporate university, some call it corporate academy. But beyond the nomenclature, let's look at the content of it and how best to deliver the kind of expectations and results that you're going to get from it so you can deliver value down the line in your corporate university. So the structure of the corporate university, stay with me, follow me on this journey. I want to show you a structure. It's most probably a structure you've never seen before. And this structure helps you to configure your organization into a university, into a laboratory of learning, where everybody in your organization is involved in the learning process in the organization. Here is my structure. Consider that at the top of the organization in the university, the highest level in the university is usually the university trustees. Now, the university trustees, who are they representing in the corporate environment? In the corporate environment, they represent executive management. They represent the CEO. They represent the CEO, the CMO, the CXO in the organization. They represent ESCO, the executive directors in the organization. Those are the university trustees. So your corporate university, the trustee of that corporate university are executive management, which then means for your corporate university to be successful, executive management must be involved. They must be drivers of it. They must be promoters and supporters of it. They must champion it for you to get results. Let's look at the second level. The second level of your corporate university is where you have the VC. You know, in the university, we call him the VC, the Vice Chancellor, right? So the university chancellor, who is the equivalent of the university chancellor in the corporate environment? The HR director. So the HR director is the university vice chancellor. In your organization, that HR director is the VC of learning in that particular environment. Let's go down one more level. The dean. You know, in the university, you have different departments. You have dean of science, dean of arts, dean of social studies, dean of communications. Each of those deans, who is the representative of these deans in our own corporate environment? Senior managers. So the senior managers in various departments, they are the deans of their departments. They are the deans of the functional areas where they expect their employees to learn from and grow their knowledge in that particular area. Let's go down one more level. University professor. Remember we just spoke about the professor. Yes, the university professor. Now, who is the equivalent of professors in the corporate environment? Subject matter experts. That specialist, that employee that knows it very well, that has become an expert in his area, he is the equivalent of the university professor. You know, in every department under the dean, there are professors in each department. So in every unit also in the organization, every department, there are subject matter experts who are specialists in their area, who know very well what they are doing in that particular area. One more step down the line. Then you have what we call the university advisors. The university advisors. When a student wants to apply for a course, he goes and meets an advisor that advises him based on the courses that are available, what he should do. The departmental managers are examples of the learning advisors, the university advisors. They discuss with employees one-on-one to ensure that things work very well at that point in time. Okay, so that's your structure of the corporate university. But I'm not done yet. Let me give you one last one. And this is the administrative part of the university administration. Somebody has to be in charge of ensuring that the admission process works, that the examination process works, that certification process works in the university. Within the corporate organization, who is in charge of the university administration? That's the head of training and development, the L&D person who is in that particular unit. He's the person who is in charge of ensuring that when a training runs, assessment is done, people get certificates, people are notified accordingly at that point in time. Those are examples of what the L&D or the training manager does. Now, if you sit back and look at this particular structure, can you see how it is possible for you to put up a corporate university in your organization? Unfortunately, in a lot of organizations, this is the only person that they have in learning and development. Can you notice? It's only the training manager, the L&D, that is involved in training. How then can we have a learning culture in the organization if we do not have this structure in place? Executive management is not involved. The HR director is not involved. Senior manager, subject matter experts, department managers are not involved. Only the learning and development director. And guess what we said? What is the role of the training manager, of the learning and development? He's administrative in nature. So he will not drive for learning. Rather, he will drive for administration. Have they filled the form? Did they attend class? Has the vendor who is in charge of food, has he come to ensure that the food has been placed? Have we printed materials and all those things? Those are administrative, does not necessarily drive learning. It just ensures that the learning environment is conducive and wonderful for the person to learn. The rest people who are in charge of ensuring that learning works have failed and they did not deliver at that point in time. This is why you need a learning culture in your organization. Have engagement with consultants, talk to us. We will help you to design a learning culture in your organization that ensures that your organization runs like a corporate university at that point in time. Now, let me provide you more perspective and detail on each of these areas of what we have said at this point in time. Now, the executive trustees, the university trustees, which are the executive management, what they are responsible for determining the general areas of development and the skill set required to drive and achieve strategic goals in the organization. They direct the university chancellor, aka head of HR, in setting training priorities and in assessing results, return on investment, and on annual basis in that particular case. The university chancellor, aka HR director, is responsible for setting annual training objectives. He ensures that the training system is effective in meeting the demand of the business. He works with the university deans, that is, senior managers of various departments, in creation of tactical implementation plans for specific areas of development, aka School of Learning, in order to ensure that learning happens in those particular areas. The university dean also ensures that things work very well. The university dean is the equivalent of the senior manager. Senior managers organize training into strategic areas of development that house specific training and certification programs. Deans work with HR or the training to create specific courses and learning content. They set eligibility criteria. They evaluate effectiveness and manage learning reinforcement processes as much as possible. Finally, the university professor or the subject matter expert, the SME, is also within the company. He is trained in learning facilitation techniques. So as part of your organization, you should train your subject matter expert how to train. So the fact that I know something does not mean I can train another person. I can transfer that knowledge to another person. I may know it, but I can't transfer it. So the best thing to do is to train those people on how to train. This is where train the trainer comes in. You must transfer that particular knowledge. Then external trainers and vendors are contracted. Consulting firms like ours are called in with the objective to train the subject matter experts, to provide them with the content and customize the application of their learning in that environment so that the university, the organization can own their learning and be able to use it to produce as much results as possible. The university advisor, departmental managers, they are responsible for supporting the creation of individual development plans. They work with the employee to ensure that the employee has an individual development plan. In some environments, individual development plans do not exist. In some other environments where they exist, once it has been created, it is thrown away. It is never used again until the year ends. And in some other environments where an attempt is made to use it, either some managers or some employees resist and push and say that this thing is too much of a headache. Unfortunately, those people do not make progress. They do not learn, they do not advance because they have not taken ownership of their individual development plan. Now, assessing the applicability of training programs and scheduling employees to attend programs is the job of the development managers or the departmental managers, aka university advisors. They must also establish pre-training learning objectives. Before an employee goes out on training, you call the employer and sit him down. You are going for this 2 days training, you're going for this 1 day training. The objective you're going for this training is 1, 2, 3. You must learn, you must be able to do, you must be able to transfer. So when the employee is in class, he is looking out for answers to those things that the manager has told him. So when he comes back to the office, he's able to do those things that has been said at that point in time. Then our university administrator, the learning and development director, or the head of training, as the case may be, under the leadership of the L&D manager, the training departments are responsible for development of all course content, delivery and learning methodology, program administration and the learning management system, and ensuring the effective report and evaluation of training at the end of training. This is why we say that you need to put in place a corporate university in your environment. You can imagine the 6 structures we just discussed. If you put it in place, a learning culture will emerge automatically in your organization. And everybody in the organization, nobody will ever resign from your organization in the name that our organization it does not train, does not develop. About 24% of the time when people resign and leave organization, their reason for leaving is that there is no opportunity for development, no training in that organization. Put this in place, you will save 24% of staff who are resigning from your organization. Your training design and learning methodology is also important. Now, when you're designing training and putting your method of learning in place, be conscious of the people you're training. Every employee in the working environment is an adult. There is no child again. There is no small children in the work environment. So everybody are adults. And adults vary in the way they learn. Some are hardwired. They want to learn by experience. They want to try it out. So don't talk too much, not too much stories. If you teach, you allow them to practice. As they practice, they learn. While some others, they have short attention span. When you put them in class, in 20 minutes of staying in class, they'll turn to their mobile phone. They can't concentrate again. Their attention has left at that point in time. This is why it's important for you to break the learning in small, small gaps so that the person can assimilate it and be able to use it at that point in time. Then it's also important for you to use graphics, design, experimentations, and show them pictures and things like that. Use videos, use blended learning, so that the person sees the learning come alive for him at that point in time. Blended learning is a method where you can use most effective ways to support an adult to learn as much as possible in that particular place. Now, how do you implement blended learning in your organization? First, try on-demand learning. This particular video you're watching at this point in time is an example of a blended learning that is a webinar that has been held and uploaded to an online learning platform. And so you're going through it at the end of the program at that point in time. There's also self-paced learning, which on its own says once you finish learning one module, you click a button to go to the next. You click a button to go to the next. It's not like YouTube, where you sit down and watch from beginning till end, nothing happens. It gets to the end and then stops playing. It's not like a videotape or a video CD that you play from beginning till end. In a self-paced learning, you must click the next button before it progresses to the other point, all right? Then there's also what is called chunking. Multiple short learning periods over time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So the person can just go and listen or watch for 5 minutes. That 5 minutes he has learned, you go and apply it. For example, in our conversation so far, we've spoken about a lot of things. We've spoken about the culture of learning. We've spoken about leadership. We've spoken about individual development plans. We've spoken about employees taking ownership of their learning. We've spoken about the corporate university. These entire things we've said, we could have broken them into short videos. Then if you're interested in this area, you just go to that area and learn from that area, and then you make progress at that point in time. So instructor-led, true facilitated learning agendas. This is an example where a teacher is in the presence of the students. So the instructor is leading the conversation at that point. It's not recorded, it's live, like this one we're having now that is live at this point in time. There's also the mentor or the coach who specifically works with you on certain areas where you have gaps, so you can build yourself in those particular areas, and then you advance also. There's also reading, personal reading. You can read materials, you can read books. Let's Read is a powerful platform that presents to you a book every day that you can read, a book that has been summarized into 10 to 15 minutes manual, and you can read it and get this full sense of it in 6 to 9 pages. So in 15 minutes, even if you're commuting, you can learn and be able to apply it. If you follow Let's Read on a daily basis, in 1 year, you will have read 250 books. And if you follow them and read and follow what they are giving to you, nobody will challenge you in learning. You become an authority in most areas in life because you have followed that particular area. The question is, can you spare 15 minutes every day? Is 15 minutes out of 24 hours too much to ask from you in order for you to learn and build yourself? If you can invest that 15 minutes, talk to Let's Read, and you become much more powerful in your career and in your organization. There's also formal development programs where you are sent on placement or advancement for you to grow in that area, or external training programs and conferences that augments the internal learning programs, where you are nominated by your organization to attend those programs held by consulting firms like ours. Now, in your empowered learning and reinforcement, what do? It is not everything you learn that will stay. Is that not so? Sometimes when you read, what you read, part of what you read, you forget it. Have you ever gone to write an exam? Previously, you have finished reading, and then you enter the exam, and you see a question. I say, this question, I read it yesterday. But you cannot recollect what it means at that point in time. So you need reinforcement. It is said that the weakest ink, the weakest biro that is fading is better than the strongest memory, than the best retentive memory. Because that pen that you've used to write something down, any day you come, next week, next month, next year, 10 years time, when you open the book, you will see that thing you have written at that point in time. So invest in proper learning. How do you ensure that you augment your learning and you retain the things that you've learned in such a structured way in your corporate organization? There are 4 things you can do. These 4 things involve employees, it involves managers, it involves your mentors and your coach, and it involves your performance management system in your organization. Let's look at employees. What are employees' responsibility to ensure that they learn and they grow? 1, foundationally, the employee working with his manager must create his personal development plan, which the manager has guided him to create. 2, the employee must do a self-assessment, know himself, know where he is, know his gaps, and then prioritize his personal development and training. Take ownership of his learning and development. 3, he must do a post-training measurement to teach others. At the end of training, don't just go and sit down. Anything you learn, call people together, teach them. If there's nobody to teach in your office, when you get home, teach your younger people. The more you teach people, even in traffic, anywhere you are in community, teach people. Talk to people. The more you talk to people, that thing you learned will stay, will then remain permanently in you. You must do this in 48 hours. In 2 days of learning anything, you must find 3 persons to teach what you have learned. Try it. What you learned will stay. Now, how do you implement your IDP? First, you must make sure that your IDP captures your strength. It captures areas of learning and development. It captures areas of opportunities and activities. Then it also captures areas where a mentor can help you to develop. And then it captures areas where we can record your development, that it has happened at that point in time. The third thing, again, you can do is, remember I would say you must teach 3 persons. The first person, someone who shares knowledge with a second person. You must share knowledge with someone else. The second person teaches new knowledge to a third person through capture, expansion, and application. Then the third person receives added value knowledge from it. That's why we say learning involves 3 persons. The person that teaches, the person that applies what he has learned, and the person that is a recipient of what has been applied at that point in time. People learn better if they are prepared to teach someone else. The more I prepare to teach another person, the more I know it. Now that I've run this training program, tomorrow if you ask me, I know it more now than initially when I just read it or I just developed it, or from my experience, because I have taught some people about this particular program at this point in time. Now, the next set of individuals in empowering learning and reinforcement is managers and mentors. What can the managers do? The managers provide continuous feedback and coaching to the employee about how he's doing. They set training learning objectives for the employee, and then they create opportunities where employees can apply what they have learned. Mentors, on the other hand, all right, are trained and position themselves within the organization to work with the employees to ensure that the employee succeeds in the areas where he's learning at that point in time. How can this be done? Well, here are some tactics. Teach the employee how to focus, how to concentrate. One of our major problems as humans is that we have concentration problem. We cannot focus. We are easily distracted. And that is why we are slow in achieving results. And there are a lot of employees out there who are not meeting expectations, not because they can't, but because they've allowed themselves to be distracted. Then there's a shared context that facilitates implementation. You must implement what you have learned so that you can have performance improvement. Then there's an ongoing learning relationship. That thing you've learned, go back and play the video again. Go back and read your notes. Remind yourself of what you read. And then there's a safe working environment where the new behavior is allowed to flourish, is allowed to be practiced in that particular place. So inspire and motivate the person, give him the vision to be able to achieve the results he's pursuing. Remember, learning is an inherent social activity. We learn because we are social animals. The more we work together, the more we learn as a group at that point in time in our learning process. The fourth thing that we put in place in your empowered learning, like we said earlier, is your performance measurement system. You must measure qualitatively and quantitatively to see the extent that training is having effectiveness on the employee and we are getting results. Measure attendance, measure contribution, measure change in behavior, measure business impact. This way, you will get better results at that point in time. How do you measure some of these things? Use test scores. Measure the employee before the training, measure the employee ahead of the training, at the end of the training. That's what we call pre-course test and post-course test. Pre-course test checks for what you know already before you go for the training. Post-course test checks for what you now know at the end of that particular training. All right? Now, training effectiveness, you can run a survey on training effectiveness, and there are 3 levels on that particular survey on training effectiveness. Level 1 is your experience. Check whether the employee is having a wonderful experience in his learning. The more the experience the employee has, the better results he can get. The training will have impact. 2 is learning. Although he has a good experience, did he learn anything? Has he acquired the learning he needs in order to make progress at that point in time? If an employee has learned, then it is kudos to him because he has internalized some of the things he has learned. Level 3 is behavior. Because of what you have learned, are you now able to do things differently? Can you now achieve better results at that point in time? Let me give you an illustration that covers these three things we've mentioned. Imagine if your staff, who is a customer service officer, is always carrying straight face and she doesn't like to smile. And then you find out a training program. You call P4P, you ask them, please, do you have anything on smiling that makes employees in customer service to smile? P4P says, yes, we have 3 steps to effective smiling training. And then you invite the employee and tell him to go and attend the program. The employee gets to the training. The facilitator was very funny. The facilitator brought a lot of material. Fellow colleagues in the training contributed, and the employee felt, wow, this is a great training. And then he comes back to the office. You ask the employee, how was the training? He said, fantastic training. I think other employees should attend. That's an example of level 1 training effectiveness. The person had a good experience. Level 2, you ask the employee, okay, what did you learn? And the employee says, well, the things they taught us, they gave us manual, it's inside the manual. Is an indication he did not learn. He was busy enjoying the food, the joke, and the association in class, and he did not learn. But if you ask him, what did you learn? He said, well, I learned that smiling is better than frowning. When you smile, customers are happier and they buy more. Smiling takes 3 muscles. Frowning takes 8. Therefore, it is easier to smile than to frown. Smiling is a human nature that you do. You see, it's clear that the person has learned something and he's able to reiterate to you what he has learned at that point in time. Level 3. Now that the person has come back on training and you send him back to work, when he gets back to work, is he now smiling to customers or is he still carrying a straight face? If he's still carrying a straight face, then the training experience and the learning has no impact on his behavior. You begin to ask, why is he not smiling, despite the fact that he's attended training on smiling? So it's very important that when he comes back, that he demonstrates that that learning has impact in his life. His behavior has changed. He needs to smile to his customers. Another thing we can do to measure training is training impact and return on investment. Training impact is saying that training the person has attended, what is it doing to the organization? Is the organization benefiting from that training? Like our friend from customer service that went on that training. Let's assume she came back and her behavior changed and she is now smiling. Our customers now buying extra, our complaints reducing. These are metrics that show that that particular training has impact on the organization. How about ROI? ROI is return on investment. What if we are paid X amount of money? The amount of things that customers are now buying, is it higher than what we paid for the training? Or customers are not buying enough to justify the amount of money we have paid for that training? That shows that that training has 0 or negative return on investment at that point in time. Another way to measure training is internal transfer and promotions. That employee that came back from training, did he teach other people? Did he transfer the knowledge to other person? Or he went on that training and kept it only for himself? That's an example of an employee who is hoarding knowledge. You cannot learn and hoard it to yourself. Don't be selfish. Whatever you learn, share the love, share it to other person, so that the way you have improved, other people can improve also. Remember, the more you share and demonstrate what you've learned, then you are available for promotion to the next level. Employee performance evaluation and appraisal are also another way to measure training and development. All right. And then various certification programs can also help you to drive the learning and development of employees in the organization. In summary, what have we said about empowered learning culture? We've said that you need to hire learners in your organization. You need to put in place a company-wide training structure that ensures a replication of learning across the organization. Use blended learning, use different types of learning in the organization. Make sure every employee has an IDP, an individual development plan on how he grows and develops himself. Make sure that your training requires 3 persons to teach. The person learning, the person transferring what has been learned, and the person acquiring what has been transferred at that point in time. Make sure you formalize mentoring and learning partners in your organization. Then measure results in your organization. You will get the return on your investment at that point in time. To be able to drive innovation, you must invest in people. Innovation will not happen until you invest in people. This is why when you send somebody out to go and learn, when he comes back with ideas. Those ideas drive learning in the organization. And you are able to produce better results in that particular organization because you have invested in your people. Things take longer to happen than you think they will. And they happen faster than you ever thought they could, according to The Economist. This is because you have invested properly in learning. If you invest in learning, things happen very fast. It happens according to the way you want it to happen. So to drive the culture of innovation, make sure you use various areas. Use a mentoring program, a master mentoring program, to ensure that people learn as much as possible. People deliver the results that they expect, and they're able to get the benefit of what they want from that point in time. You can use different models. In your organization, for example, use a master mentor program. Make sure everybody has a mentor. That way, people have somebody to talk to on their development. You can also do a lunch and learn. During lunch hour, employees come for a 30 minutes or a 1 hour training session. You can do that twice each week or once every week, and employees will learn. All right. Get practitioners in the organization who are subject matter experts to come and teach the rest. So everybody get to understand those particular areas. If lunch hours is too difficult, you can do early in the morning. Before work starts, find 1 day in the week or 2 days in the week, early in the morning. Do 30 minutes or 1 hour, put people together and let them have an in-house session. That particular session can drive learning at that point in time. Finally, get them books, get them materials. Let people read journal, read materials, make research, and come back and make a presentation to everybody to demonstrate the learning and the knowledge they have acquired at that point in time. Make them to drive learning and knowledge. Then you have a learning culture in your organization. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have shared with you this particular information on how best to drive learning and knowledge within your organization. You could work with Let's Read. They could partner with you at a corporate level and also at an individual level. On a daily basis, you get book summaries from them in small versions, so you can read those summaries and use those particular summaries to drive learning in your organization. Make sure that every manager subscribes to it, every employee subscribes to it, so that they can read and learn. As a corporate subscription, it won't cost you more than 500 naira per person. As an individual subscription, it won't cost you more than 1,500 naira per person in a month to be able to achieve this particular result. People, our clients are both individuals and big organizations who are able to learn from these particular things. If you can benefit from this, you can learn a lot. Use the contact on this particular screen at this point in time. Reach out to Let's Read, talk to them, engage them, and they'll deliver the results that you expect from you at that point in time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have discussed with you, and I hope that the few thoughts we've shared now will enable you to deliver further learning and put a culture of learning and innovation in your organization. We'll see you again next quarter in our learning intervention under Let's Read. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. If there are any questions or concerns, I will take it.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't think we have any questions.
All right, thank you and goodbye, everyone.